Gary.
We're back.
Hey, and hey, everyone. I don't know about you, but this is getting better every week and more fun. And I look forward to this. From as soon as this is over, I'm going to be looking forward to next week.
Indeed. I don't know if we can top last week, but if we keep it at this level,
yep,
I'll be just fine with that. I'm Gary Lambert, and over there is David Lemieux.
We got it right.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary.
It's great to see you as always, my friend.
Likewise.
And here we are for another Shakedown Stream. We've got a great show, one for the ages, I think. Prime later period Grateful Dead. There it is, Giant Stadium. That glorious dump in New Jersey.
A good one.
Yeah. And it's from that era when the band was especially orchestral with two keyboard players.
Exactly.
So unique in Grateful Dead history, a unique period, and really looking forward to bringing it to you. Some of you may have seen it already in the box set or by other means, but for all of you who haven't, we welcome you to it. And for the rest of you, it ain't too bad to watch it again. It bears repeated viewings.
Yes. I'll be watching again. I've seen it many times, as many as most, maybe more. And I'll be tuning in again, so I'm looking forward. Remember, when this is over after our half hour, there's a link at the bottom of the screen you're watching for you got to go to another YouTube page to watch the show. So you'll see it down there somewhere in the description.
Right. And speaking of things that you click on your screen, there's also a donate button on your screen. And we'll be getting to what you'll be donating to in just a moment. We have been so thrilled with the response we've gotten from people, the money we've raised for excellent causes, many of them related, of course, to the COVID-19 situation, but also to the plight of musicians and people who are economically challenged, either by this crisis or in general. And we'll be doing that again today. And perhaps we should just bring in our guest as quickly as possible, because I know I'm eager to see him.
I'm very eager to see him. He's a legendary musician in his own right. And in the Dead world, he's likewise legendary for his collaborations with the Grateful Dead. So, Gary, you go ahead and introduce our very special guest tonight.
Yeah, I won't call him a friend of the family because he is family. Please welcome Branford Marsalis.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man.
What's happening?
So good to see you, my friend.
You as well, G-Man.
How are you? Doing okay?
Yep, hanging in there.
Right on.
Yeah, how are you?
Doing quite well.
Oh, very nice. And I just have some tea. I'm an old man.
Shame on you.
Yeah. I'll reconsider that in future shows. It'll make the shows infinitely more entertaining, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
So, Branford, how are you spending your time? I'm sure you had a busy year planned, and you may still have a busy year planned, but in a highly modified way.
You can plan as much as you like. It ain't happening. Yeah, we had concerts basically from March to June, all gone. We're now looking at September with fingers crossed, because you don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And so I get to play more golf than I ever have in my life. That part is awesome. Not my scoring. My scoring's miserable, but that might get better since I actually have time to play. Practicing, it's just great to not have to practice on the timetable. So instead of practicing 2 hours a day, I'm practicing like half an hour, 45 minutes, and saying, well, that's enough of that crap. And I'll go watch a TV show.
I think we're all doing the same.
Yeah, the binge watching business has never been stronger.
Oh, I'm sure Netflix is very happy.
Well, so as we said, we are here to support a very good cause, and one obviously dear to your heart. It is the Ellis Marsalis Center in New Orleans, which was founded by your dad. By the way, our heart continues to go out to you and the Marsalis family for the loss of Ellis, a great, great man, an inspiration to generations of musicians. And this is a way of carrying on his flame and his mission, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It was when we were talking about, well, Harry Connick and I are good friends. He studied with my dad for years. So we saw him every Thursday for years because Thursday was his lesson day. And we were talking about what we could do. And he had this thing, I want to start a school. I said, man, no, schools are ridiculous. You know, you have to, you know, you don't want to start an art school subject to like the jurisdiction of the Louisiana School Board of Education. That would be not cool. And then he came up with this idea of using his affiliation with Habitat for Humanity to build homes for a number of musicians, and Habitat gracefully changed some of their standards because the musicians in New Orleans are working in the gig economy. It's a cash economy, and they allowed guys to use their own financial records that were kept in ledger books as evidence of earnings instead of the traditional receipts and bank statements and all of that stuff. So we played a couple of concerts, we did interviews, and we talked to people and said, you know, help us out. And people from all over the world flew to New Orleans, helped build homes, sent money. Mm-hmm. And after we had built 80 homes, there was a lot of money left over. And then our manager, Harry, and I have the same manager, Anne Marie, says, well, Harry, I guess you got your school. So we started building this school and said, well, what are we going to call it? And Harry said, we should name it after Ellis. Ding. And that started the whole thing.
Makes a lot of sense. And this thing was up and running. Well, they built a musician's village, which is especially appropriate for New Orleans because it is a city that lives and breathes music and has such a deep tradition. And I believe the musician's village was completed something like 6 months after Katrina. Really, they really got it together.
Well, the construction started 6 months after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But roughly about a year and a half in, we had 5 or 6 homes, and 2 years in, the whole thing was almost done.
That's fantastic.
Amazing. So as Gary said, you know, there's a button on your YouTube channel here. You're watching at home, and please, I know it's a tough time for everyone, but if you get a chance, click the button, donate. It would really help a lot of people out, and we do appreciate everything you've done. And as Gary has said, if it's $1 or $5 or $20, everything helps. So please click the button.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have thousands and thousands of people watching this. So even the small donations are out, and if you are generous and have some disposable income, please feel free to kick in more. And the Ellis Marsalis Center is a fairly modest, small community operation, which means the money will go a long, long way to helping out there. So we're really excited to be able to help. And you know, Branford, I wanted to talk about just some of the deep, deep traditions that your father was part of, that you were carrying on, your brothers. New Orleans is so family oriented. You look around New Orleans and there's a Marsalis and there's a Baptiste and there's a Neville somewhere making music. Pretty much.
Proud of those families. The Paulin family, Trombone Shorty's family, the Andrews family. There's a lot of families. You know, the Alquin family is a lot of families. You know, the Barberin family.
Right.
So when people, you know, there's this phrase that got kind of lumped on us, you know, called, the Marsalises are the first family of jazz. I'm like, well, we're only second generation. They're musicians in New Orleans who are like the 5th generation of musicians. Mm-hmm. And I know that. And, you know, we're on the bottom of the totem pole in New Orleans. They might gas us everywhere else, but we get down there, they're like, man, let's go over there somewhere. You got a long way to go before you can catch up with these other families. So yeah, it is a family oriented. It's a very, you know, people are friendly to one another. People talk to one another. Musicians play together all the time. They don't really get caught up in that kind of competition thing. Well, for the most part. And I loved it. I love being there. I love it.
Yeah, even the competition is kind of spirited and part of the tradition, you know, like the Mardi Gras Indian tribes, like, you know,
right.
Yeah, facing off and all that stuff. But it's also a very cooperative thing. It's like it's one big family. And I want to talk about the whole theme of mentorship, which is really important in music. You know, I think all of us can point to someone. I'm fortunate to have grown up when I was at a very impressionable age and getting into the Beatles and getting into the Supremes and Motown and all that stuff. I have an older brother who was turning me on to all kinds of jazz and 20th century classical music. And the convergence of those things, my rock and roll and folk orientation, and the more outside and advanced stuff he was turning me on to, kind of prepared me to be a deadhead in a way, because you know, those things converge. And I know mentorship is very important in New Orleans. You think of all the generations of piano players, Toots Washington to Longhair to Mac Rebenak to Harry Connick. You know, it's this great progression, and I'm sure you have benefited from that tremendously. And you probably are now looked at as a mentor by younger musicians yourself.
I think it would be more so if I actually lived in New Orleans,
right?
Still, but I live in North Carolina now, and I go when I can go. And I just remember I had the opportunity to play clarinet in the youth orchestra, clarinet in the traditional jazz band, traditional New Orleans music jazz band that was run by Danny Barker, who was the guitarist and banjoist for Louis Armstrong for a number of years before he left New York and came back to New Orleans to teach us. I also played in the R&B style marching bands. I was in an R&B band. I played keyboards in a rock band for a little bit. It's just great to be in this place where you could play all these styles of music and nobody seemed to be surprised or blanch at it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And having an open mind and not being a purist is so important to being able to communicate with a lot of different kinds of musicians. You know, there are people who are very traditional in New Orleans, play very much in the tradition, and then there are younger people who pick up some of the tradition, but they bend it in new ways. And that's true in the Grateful Dead world too. You know, we've had that mentorship thing going on where, you know, Phil has been playing with his son and his son's contemporaries. Right. Of course, Bobby, Mickey, and Bill now are playing with guys 20 plus years younger than them.
They are.
That helps move the music forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And you certainly enjoyed playing with Dead and Company with O'Teal and Jeff and John providing some new blood.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I got to do that. I've only done it once, but it was a blast.
At Lock-In,
we had a good time.
Yeah. Well, great.
You know, as we led into the show tonight, we were listening to your first collaboration with the Dead, and that was, you know, we were all talking about this earlier. It was 30 years ago. It was over 30 years plus a couple of months, and it's amazing. You know, I listened to the lead-in as we were coming on tonight, and it's as fresh today as it was the first time. I remember getting that tape. I wasn't at the show, but I got the tape a week later. And it was mind-blowing then, and now it was like I just didn't want it to end. As we just said, do we want to fade out now or not? And we kept the music going. And
that sounded great, man. It was It was one of these things that was clearly meant to happen because of how it happened. It was so bizarre. There's a guy that most of you don't know named Jim Louie, and Jim Louie was a manager of a band, and he wanted me to produce some tracks for them in Ithaca, New York. And ironically, it was a former Dead cover band. So we're doing the sessions, and Jim's cousin, Andy Eustavinus, worked in video production for the Grateful Dead, came to New York and called Jim. He said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm doing this stuff with Branford." "Oh, Phil loves Branford. Phil says hi." "Hey, you know, Phil says hi. Oh, tell Phil I said hey." And then the next day, Andy calls and says, "Phil wants to know if Branford wants to come and sit in with the band." I said, "Well, as soon as we're finished, sure, I'll go to Nassau, no problem," because I was living in Brooklyn at the time.
Right. And
in my mind, it's a 3-hour drive from Ithaca, to Long Island, 2.5, 3, and I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get backstage? I don't have a pass. There's no way this is going to happen, but I'm going to go. The security guards are going to tell me to get the hell out of here. And then I go to Brooklyn and said, I tried and they wouldn't let me in. And I got to the gate and said, you know, I'm here to play with the band. And they said, oh yeah, go ahead in, which, you know, I played with Sting. There was no chance of that ever happening. Oh, sure, go in. I'm like, okay, this is different. So I got backstage and met the guys. Phil was excited. The other guys were like, okay, yeah, another jazz guy. Great. Okay. So, you know, and they did exactly what I would do when I don't know someone. They said, so look, we'll bring you up on the last song of the first set. That way, if it sucks, you can say, yeah, thanks for playing. See you later. I mean, in my mind, I'm going, that's exactly what I do. either at the end of the show or in between, right before the intermission. So I can say, yeah, man, thanks for coming. That's it. So I'm trying to remember. I think it was Birdsong. I could be wrong.
Yeah. First set was Birdsong.
It was Birdsong. And I played the song, and they put me over there next to Jerry, and he started playing some things, and I played off of him, and he looked around and smiled, and we had a little thing going. And I thought that was it. And I said, well, thanks for letting me play. And they were all like, no, stay for the second half. It'd be great. And that's what, and then everything after that was just, whatever that became. But it was I definitely didn't expect that when I was driving down the New York Thruway.
But I'll tell you, you said that thing about the rest of the band saying another jazz guy. It wasn't really like that because they hadn't played with that many jazz guys, except early on in their history, they jammed with people like Charles Lloyd a few times when Charles was living in San Francisco. But
prior to me playing with them,
yeah,
no, for a fact, David Murray played once and Ornette played once.
That was after you.
It was after me?
Jerry had recorded with Ornette.
Yeah, I'm wrong then. Okay.
Yeah. Ornette had not played on stage.
They weren't just another jazz guy. They were like, we don't know this guy.
Yeah, well,
okay.
You might be surprised because very often when the Grateful Dead had guests, they might be bringing on a blues guitarist, and they had to, basically let's play some blues tunes, and then he'll leave. Right. If it was a country guy, they'd have to play within that person's wheelhouse.
Right.
With you, they had an experience that I don't think they'd ever had before, where a guy came on stage having never met any of the guys, having never played any of the book, and pretty much within 30 seconds of that bird song, you were playing Jerry's phrases back at him, or harmonizing lines that he had played, and so you were so in their wheelhouse, And Bobby Weir, part of what Bobby played on Birdsong, he kind of semi-appropriated from the John Coltrane tune Tunji.
Right.
McCoy's right hand part.
Right.
We talked about this with Bobby last week. So to hear a soprano sax on that, they were so immediately smitten, as was everyone.
Oh no, it was a great vibe on stage, man. Yeah. It really was. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, it was just. I think Kreutzmann probably knew who I was, maybe, but still, there's an unfamiliarity with a person. How are you going to play in this setting?
Sure.
See, when I was growing up, this was what I did first. I didn't grow up playing jazz. I graduated to jazz around 19 or 20. But I joined my first band when I was 12. I played piano in a cover band. So that was my thing. And that's what I thought was always going to be my thing until one day I woke up and said, I want to do something else. But it was mostly because it was more on the R&B side. And then the machines started taking over. And there were keyboards with sax samples. And I'm like, yeah, not my thing. So like playing with the Dead. I mean, come on, I grew up listening to folk music, listening to rock music, listening to almost everything except jazz, which I caught up with, in my 20s. So it was it was great for me because the situation that I was in is the late 80s. I hadn't done anything in the style in a long time. So I was happy to dust that stuff off and get back to it.
David, any questions, any comments?
Well, the one thing, I've listened to a fair amount of Grateful Dead music, and when they've had special guests, which is, a bit of a rarity, they didn't often have people come up. Generally, not always, certainly there are a few terrific exceptions, but generally it would kind of hold the band back. This is a band that when you played with them the first time, they'd been together 25 years. They kind of they had their inside jokes. They were, the group mind could play the music. So it would generally hold them back a little bit. And then you come on stage, and from that bird song, and in particular, the second set, From Eyes of the World onward,
right,
you pushed them forward. It was unreal how well you fit in. And I gather you hadn't heard too much Grateful Dead by that point. And so playing with them on stage, did you feel it right then that you were fitting in as well as we heard you fitting in, because you pushed them forward, and that's not something we were used to with a special guest?
I'll tell you the best story. I was 14 years old, and I in New Orleans playing with a singer whose name I can't remember. I only played with her once. I was playing all my licks, playing my thing, got my eyes closed, and she turns around in the middle of the show and says, "Hey, don't play that bullshit behind me while I'm singing. This is my show." And I was 14. My feelings were hurt. I went home and said, "Dad, you won't believe what happened." And I told him the story. He starts laughing. He goes, "Hey, man, It's not your band. It's the singer's band. You got to play with the singer. You can't pretend the singer's not there. And if you got a problem with that, don't do those kinds of gigs. Mm-hmm. It's something I never forgot. So eventually, what I learned how to do was to actually play with people. Mm-hmm. And the major component to playing with people is listening and waiting. So if you listen to the recording, almost every time they sang the first verse, I didn't play because I'm trying to hear the motion of the song. Whereas a lot of jazz guys, what they hear, they listen for structure. Mm-hmm. So they want to hear chord changes. What are the changes? I'm listening for the sound. What is the sound of the song? And whatever the song sounds like, I've played enough different styles of music to find something that works in that setting. So in my view, because a lot of guys that have seen the band hundreds of times say, man, you really push those guys. I wasn't really trying to push them, but I think that they realized that I was listening to them. Mm-hmm. I wasn't just saying, point to me when it's my turn and I'm going to do my thing and then take a nap. We were improvising. We were bouncing off on one another. And everybody became more alert because they realized it wasn't going to be the standard thing where, give me my 2 minutes to show what I can do. And then, I'll just stand there disinterested while you guys, that's not any fun for me. I like playing with people, being involved.
And your approach and your philosophy fit right into the Grateful Dead's ideal of what they wanted to be. That group of people inventing collectively in the moment and hearing each other. Yeah. And if you've played together long enough, also anticipating each other.
I just dug the set. The set was so varied. That's what as soon as I walked on the stage, first of all, they had tower lights, which I hadn't seen since the 70s. I'm like, wow, tower lights. That's already cool. The light shows had become the Vari-lights and everything sheen and moving around. I'm like, damn, tower lights, that's great. And then they didn't have a set list. Yeah. And that was like the greatest thing. So no set list. So literally anything could happen. And it was before they had the talkback system. So they would literally kind of stop and try and say, okay, what y'all want to play? Hey, let's play this. Nah, let's do this. Hey, let's do some Dylan, man. Yeah, that's great. I was like, man, that's my kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, it worked. I was pretty up to my ears in Grateful Dead music at that point. So I wasn't the kind of person at that point in my life where I sought out tapes of shows because I had plenty to listen to and I had plenty committed to memory. But I, unfortunately for me in that moment, was still living on the West Coast at the time. And when I heard at something like 8 the next morning that you had sat in with them, I said, I need that tape. Pronto.
Yeah, it was a blast. I had a private number, and I started getting phone calls the next day from, hey man, how'd you get this number? They say, oh man, we're harmless, but we're everywhere. I got like 10 calls the next day. Great show last night, man.
Yeah.
Who is this? And after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm like, it's a New Orleans thing. Okay, great, it's a thing, it's fine. So people would call, and then we would sit on the phone and talk about the show and talk about the Dead, and it was a cool thing. Deadheads are cool. Great, because it's actually about the music. Because when you play in other settings, so many times people ask you questions. It's never really about the music. It's about, what's it like to be in a limo? What's it like to be this? And what's it like to be, what does it feel like to play for all those people? And Deadheads will call, they were talking about the music. Yeah, the boys were a little off tonight, but I really like the way you did that. Oh man, the band was great. And I enjoy that because I like playing music.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it showed that night and it showed every time you played with the guys over the years. Oh yeah, what's this? There is a picture from that night of you and Jerry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Digging each other.
I had hair back then, so it was great to see it.
We want to mention again that part of the reason we're here, other than just the sheer pleasure of hanging with Branford and talking to him. Oh, our producer Marty wants to know exactly what your beverage of choice is this evening.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
From San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Excellent. Wow. Excellent. So we are here for various reasons, one of which is to help raise some funds for the Ellis Marsalis Center in New Orleans, carrying on the work of the great Ellis Marsalis, patriarch of that wonderful family. Branford, I got to say how much it meant to me to see the entire family on stage at Jazz Fest last year.
It was nice to see you. Like coming off the stage, we're doing this second line. I'm like, oh, it's Lambert. What's he doing here?
That's right. Security.
Yeah, no, I was like, hey, they out of prison for the day. Great, yeah.
On furlough, yeah. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. The warden was very kind.
Great to see. That was a nice surprise, man.
And that closed out the day on the final day of Jazz Fest in the jazz tent, and it was a tribute to your dad. And you and Winton and Jason and Delfeo were all up there playing, and it was just a joyous, joyous thing.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was the last time we all got a chance to play together too, so it was great. It was
honored to have been a witness. So do push that button that says donate and dig in as deep as you can to help out the Ellis Marsalis Center to keep carrying this tradition on and bring music to young people who are in need, who don't always have the resources, who can't afford instruments often, who can't afford private lessons for sure. So this is a fantastic resource for the people of New Orleans, and will be helping to produce the next generation of great New Orleans musicians. We're going to get to some questions, I believe.
Here we go.
Seems as good as time as any. Branford, I want to mention the show we are showing right now is one that you do not play on because we didn't have the ability to get access to one of those shows.
I kept saying Giant Stadium. I'm not on that.
No. But this is from a period in which you did play with the band, and of course, your friend Bruce Hornsby was on board at that point. You've had many great moments with Bruce, both inside and outside the Grateful Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that was included in the Giant Stadium box set that came out a while ago. This beautiful DVD and Blu-ray was part of it, of this show. And I'm going to bring up a question just for David and me before we jump into your questions. We've had numerous questions since we started Shakedown Stream, some almost bordering on complaints as to why have you put out previous release shows so much on Shakedown Stream? Why can't we get more unreleased stuff? And there are very good reasons for that. And David, I'll let you take it first.
Well, the Vault has a fair amount of video in it, but this series came about pretty quickly, as the whole pandemic did, obviously. And we put the series together. So we've been showing a few shows that are previously released, like the Giant Stadium show tonight. But we've also dug into the Vault and get the transfers done. Now, getting things done, the Vault is largely closed. The transfer facility is largely closed. So it's not quite as quick as it normally is. But coming up over the next several weeks, we have a lot of previously unreleased Grateful Dead concerts out of the Vault that you've not seen. We'll still be putting on shows like the Giant Stadium and other things that we have released, but we are going to start getting more of those up because they do take a little while. We have to digitize. Gary and I need to proof them, but we'll get them up. It's just we're catching up with how quick this series has developed.
Right. So, this is not just pulling out a VHS tape and slapping it in the recorder and somehow it turns up on the internet. There's a lot of audio and video tweaking that has to happen. And as we saw with the Buckeye Lake show, there may be missing parts from any given video. They ran out of video toward the end of that, so we had to put up a slide and keep the audio going. So this is hard work under very onerous circumstances. The people who are going into the Vault on a very limited basis bring out what they can, and they have to review it. Then they have to bring it up to usable digital quality, and they're all doing this from home. They're not doing this in the most optimum facility. So be patient. We've got great stuff coming up. And if you see something you've seen before, as I said, repeated viewings are rewarded.
We generally released it because it's pretty darn good. So we got a lot of good stuff coming. We just heard from our producer that we're going to go a few minutes long tonight. We're having fun. So Branford, if it's okay, stick around for a few more minutes. We're having a good time. So make sure you hit the donate button, which is over by Gary's side, I think. And do help out the Ellis Marsalis Center. You've been very generous. And we really do appreciate everything you've been doing the last 5 weeks. And if you can keep it going, keep the donations coming, they're really greatly appreciated. Yeah.
So do we want to grill Branford with some of these tough interrogations that we were sent in by viewers?
I saw one question came through, and Branford, for a lot of us who heard or were at that Nassau show. It was really a lot of people's introduction to you, and to a lot of people introduction to jazz. And the question really came down to, after you played with the Dead, that show, and then 9 months later for New Year's, and then 9 months after that at Madison Square Garden, a couple times later, have you listened to, has the Grateful Dead been part of your listening in in those early years when you started playing with the Dead, and listening to it now?
Yeah, I started listening a lot, because on the off chance that I was going to play with the guys again, I didn't want to limit their repertoire. I wanted to. And I eventually started this band called Buckshot LaFunk, and we actually played a couple of Dead tunes, and we're eventually going to record them. We played a couple of things, though. Franklin's Tower and Lady with a Fan.
Oh, cool. And
yeah, that one was fun. You know, we played some shows with Widespread Panic, and we're talking, especially in pandemic times. We have this third record we like to do, and both of those may be on the record. One of them for sure will be on the record.
Excellent.
I remember also right around that time you guested on one of Hornsby's records, and there was a song that was full of Dark Star quotes.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Which this Giant Stadium show also is, incidentally.
Yeah,
so,
it's called Talk of the Town. That's the name of the song.
Yeah. Our producer Marty says that your track "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings" is one of the all-time greatest.
Oh, cool! Thanks. Yeah, that was fun. Maya Angelou actually performed on the record. It was great.
That's right. Let me see what I've got here. I like this one from Jesse. He asks, "How do you spot a Deadhead in a jazz audience?"
The tie-dyes are kind of a giveaway.
A little more animated too.
The enthusiasm, yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and there's always a dark star. Dark star. So, it's generally, and they're just awesome fans.
Yeah, I remember I talked to you very shortly after the Nassau show, the first time we actually met, and you talked about how after years of playing either in jazz clubs or in concert situations, to be in a place where an entire dance floor was up and moving for the whole show, and
yeah, it's great.
The sound that the audience made in affirmation was unlike anything you'd experienced.
Well, it's just different because one of the realities of being an American or being from the United Kingdom or anywhere else is that most people hear with their eyes. It's not lost on me that when I talk to my friends about going to concerts, the operative verb they use is see, not hear. Mm-hmm. Deadheads, not only do they see, but they feel. Like they feel this kind of energy, and they hear what's going on, and they react to it. They don't react to, oh my God, this is my favorite song. Like you sit in, like even when I was going to concerts as a kid, you go to hear a band, of course, and to see a band. You go to see a band, and whenever a song would come up that was less familiar, people would just start talking to their friends. Like they were just they were there for the songs they like, and that's where it ended. But the Deadheads were always really eager to take the ride wherever the ride would go. And so when they come to my concerts, it's the same kind of thing. They're just ready to take the ride, and we can play whatever we want, and they'll go with it. It's really nice.
Great. David, you got another?
Yeah, I did, one question that came through. Now, the first time you played with the Dead at Nassau, tremendous. And there were songs that I think you fit in perfectly. Bird Song had lots of room. Eyes of the World, widely considered the Dead's jazziest song, and Dark Star. And then the second time was the New Year's run with a bit of a similar set list 9 months later. But the Madison Square Garden show, the third time you sat in with them about a year and a half after Nassau, that's when you sat in the whole show. And the set list included a lot of songs that there were a little more structure on some of them, Help on the Way and Slipknot and Shakedown Street and songs like that. were you given tapes before the shows and said, hey, if you're going to show up at this one, any of these songs you want to play, did you have any input, or was it, again, just like Nassau a year and a half earlier, you just came out and they started playing and you fit in?
Yeah, I didn't want any input.
Okay.
I just wanted to react, because I mean, if you took a jazz class, I don't recommend it, not even for jazz musicians really, but you take a jazz class and they talk about, it's all structure, analyzation of structure, and the songs have 2 chord changes per bar, 32 bars long, 16 bars long, 24 bars long. So suddenly, guys that do that stuff in their teenage years struggle being in a situation like the Dead, because the structure is just doing this the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It opens and it closes and it goes up and it goes down and it moves. And the songs, the form, they're not hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're playing a song like Shakedown, and I don't know what key it's in, but it's a dominant 7 chord.
Mm-hmm.
And if a musician says, oh, that's a G7 chord, and this is where, growing up in New Orleans and playing with musicians, where when you didn't know a song, they would sing the melody to you until you got it.
Mm-hmm.
They would never call out chord changes. I didn't have that happen to me until I moved to New York. I said, I don't know this song. And they said, oh, the structure is easy. I'm like, I'm not talking about the structure. I'm talking about the song. And they go, don't worry about the song. It's just about the solos. That's the important part. And in my mind, I'm going, nah, that's not right. So, I mean, I was kind of prepared growing up where I grew up to be in the situation. I didn't need to know the songs, because you stand around, I would stand around and I'd wait. And I'd hear the form, and sometimes they trip me up a little bit. And I say, okay, I'm not gonna make that mistake twice. I mean, it's just you just have to have a certain kind of recall and be comfortable in the moment, because I didn't want the guys playing crap to cover for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do the show.
Yeah.
And if I can't get it, I'll just leave for that song. I'll go take a seat. I mean, I could tell, because there were certain songs where, as soon as it started, I'm like, saxophone does not need to be in there, and I would just split, because I mean, when I'm playing music, it's never really about me. I'm like the most reluctant soloist person in the world. I grew up playing in horn sections. I'm a horn section guy. Horn sections are always in the back.
Mm-hmm. I
grew up in the back. I'm fine back there. That's just something that's real comfortable. So when I'm playing, when I was playing with the guys, it was like, it's like this weird thing. They put the mic up front, and I'm like, really? Can we cheat it back a little bit? Because I just want to fit in. I'm not. It's not a referendum on me. It's a referendum on us. So I didn't want him to change the show for me. I mean, it's up to me to learn the music, to learn on the fly, and to fit in.
Well, you sure did. But I recall that, once you had played with the Dead a few times, I know there were a few tunes that sort of became favorites of yours, because when you played with Dead and Company at Lock-In, I remember you saying, oh, I'd really like to play Terrapin, because you love playing soprano on Lady
Right.
in the Fan. That was like kind of a request of yours. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I have the things I like. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So they obliged you on that one.
They did. That was very nice.
Yeah. Okay, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Did the Grateful Dead ever make an offer to Branford to make him a full-time member of the band?
No, they didn't.
Yeah. Well, you had a day job in Burbank anyway for a lot of that time.
Well, I had a day job in Burbank. And I had my own band. I had my own thing.
Yeah.
And they didn't really need me. I mean, it would have been fun. I mean, it would have been a great run, but they didn't really need a saxophone player on a regular basis. I mean, especially when Hornsby joined the band. I mean, it just, I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even get paid for those gigs.
Right. Yeah. The word was out that you were welcome. The word was out that you were welcome anytime that you wanted to show up.
Oh, I know. It was a scheduling. It was just whenever the schedules worked. My favorite schedule. It wasn't the Dead though. It was the Further band.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing in Colorado with the Colorado Symphony. and we did a daytime matinee. And we were walking from the venue back to the hotel, and Jeff Chimenti was sitting on the stoop smoking a cigarette. And I walked by and said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And he looks up and goes, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" I had a gig. He said, "Well, we got a gig tonight at Red Rocks." I'm like, "That's cool, man." You know, he says, "You're going to play?" I said, "I wasn't planning on it. It's fine." So I got to the room, and then the phone rings, and it's Weir. He's like, "You're playing tonight." I'm like, "Damn it. Yeah, okay." I was just mentally tired. You know, you're playing concertos. I mean, it's a completely different mind space.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, just give me 45 minutes, you know," and I threw on some jeans and went to the gig, and there we were. And we just, you know, I mean, that was like a really funny one because I didn't know they were there. They didn't know I was there. And it happened.
Even more random than Nassau in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. They knew I was coming to Nassau.
Yeah. Well, we got to start winding this up, I think. We want to make one more pitch for the Ellis Marsalis Center before we go away. Again, a tremendous resource for the city of New Orleans, for the young people of New Orleans, and also for musicians in need, which is a very, very big need right now. So please do support it. We've done very, very well. We've raised, as of maybe about 5 or 6 minutes ago, we had $8,100 already back.
Wow.
So
thank you, everyone. Thanks, guys.
We'll go. Maybe we can get up around 9 or 10,000 before we leave, and then we'll be taking donations all through the Dead concert you're about to see. So you've got a long
show. So you have 3 more hours to donate. So
fantastic.
Please do hit that button. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, and Branford, it is so great to have you with us. You know, always a pleasure. You went pretty easy on me, I think. Yeah.
Oh, of course, man. You know, that's for me and you later.
I know. Yeah.
You know, but Dave, thank you, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Gary,
you.
I had a great time with you guys.
Yeah, I wore my Lester Young shirt just for you.
I see friends over there. That's really cool, man.
He's the only president. He's
New Orleans Pelican shirt for you.
Yeah, this is the only president I listen to these days.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I'm not even. Oh, I just caught that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The minimal political content.
I hear you, sir.
Well, we are about to go to Giant Stadium many, many years ago. It was 29 years ago. Yes, 1 year after you first played with the guys.
Yep.
A fantastic show with both Bruce and Vince on keyboards, the Grateful Dead Orchestra at that point. Hey, I want to say, whenever we get up and running with music again, first of all, I can't wait to see you in person again, Branford. But to all of you, go see Branford Marsalis play live, because it's one of the great experiences. His current quartet is one of the best bands on earth. The album they put out last year, The Secret Between the Shadow and the Soul, is one of my favorite jazz albums of recent years. The recording of the Keith Jarrett tune, The Wind-Up, is one of my favorite individual performances of recent years. It will blow your little mind. So do check that out. And David, you want to give a little preview of what we have next week?
Yes, next week we've got a show that is previously unreleased. We showed it one night in theaters a few years ago. We're going way back 48 years ago, almost as old as I am, to 1972, Europe 72, April 21st. The Beat Club, when the Grateful Dead, it was a concert performed in a TV studio. It was recorded for a German TV. And we're going to play the whole thing with the other one playing in the band, and a lot of really good music, great trucking, and you get some incredibly good close-up TV studio lighting, very intimate images of the band playing some wonderful Europe 72 Grateful Dead music. So tune into that. It's a really great show. And also tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of the Grateful Dead's kind of relaunch of the YouTube channel with the All the Years live, where we put up a new song every Thursday. We've got over 100,000 new subscribers in the last year from it. So there's a subscribe button on the Dead's YouTube channel. There's a little bell, ring the bell, which is the notification. We'd love to kind of keep you posted, and then you'll hear when we have special guests like Branford on this and other things like that. So hit the notification, subscribe. It's good stuff. Okay, and we're going to tell you once more that to get to the broadcast, the Giant Stadium video, you go below
the screen on the YouTube screen, and the info section has a different link. This will take you to a different place, still on YouTube, and you will see that fantastic Giant Stadium show from 1991. And we hope you enjoy it. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being with our friend Branford once again. Bran, love you.
Love you, brother. Great
Yeah,
to see
man.
you.
This was special. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you around.
All right.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.